Today, we're digging into a story about how a bunch of seemingly small, unrelated mistakes at a parcel company called MOMO Parcels spiraled into a truly catastrophic accident. It's a perfect case study of how things can go wrong bit by bit. But here's the thing. Our story doesn't start at the beginning. It starts right at the end. Picture this. It's late. It's quiet in a massive warehouse. And then, a single, piercing scream just rips through the silence. On the other side of the building, the night shift manager and supervisor are just having a normal conversation. They freeze. They know that sound. They know it means something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. And they just start running towards it. What they find is, well, it's a nightmare. A cleaning contractor is trapped under the huge conveyor belt. Their hair is tangled in the machinery, actually pulling their scalp away from their head. The supervisor, without even thinking, slams the big red emergency stop button. The manager, who thankfully has first aid training, rushes in to do what he can. But as the ambulance lights fade into the distance, one question is just hanging in the air. I mean, seriously, how? That machine was supposed to be completely shut down. The whole area should have been safe. To figure this out, we need to rewind the clock, not by weeks, not even by days, but just by a few really critical minutes. See, accidents like this are almost never about one single mistake. They're more like a line of dominoes. And right now, we're going to look at the last few dominoes that tipped over right before the disaster. Okay, so it all comes down to a really important safety document called a permit to work. The contractor's working alone, decides to take a quick break. The new night shift supervisor comes in, finds the permit just sitting there. He sees the job was supposed to end at 8 p.m., but he can't see the contractor anywhere. So at 10 past 8, he makes a decision that changes everything. He signs off the permit, takes off the safety lock, and fires up the conveyor belt. And here's the kicker. He'd never actually done that before, not once. He'd seen his manager do it, sure, and he figured, how hard can it be? But he hadn't been trained. He didn't know that you absolutely have to physically see the person and confirm they're done and out of the way. That one little gap in his knowledge, it turned a harmless machine into a trap. But you can't just pin it all on him. The operations manager, the guy who gave the contractor the permit in the first place, he'd already clocked out, desperate to get home after a long day, and his work phone was off. And the contractor, he knew the job was taking way longer than he'd quoted, but he wanted to impress this new client, so he just kept on working instead of stopping. You see, everyone was under their own kind of pressure, and all those pressures combined to create this perfect storm. So now, let's zoom out. Let's look past these few people for a second. When you do, you start to see that the entire system at MOMO Parcels was basically screaming for help for months. All the warning signs were there, flashing bright red, but nobody was looking. Let's start with the company's accident book. Now, you know these things, right? They're supposed to last for years. At MOMO Parcels, they filled an entire book in just 12 months. That is a massive, massive red flag that your injury rate is going through the roof. So what kinds of injuries are we talking about? Well, almost all of them, a whopping 85%, were from manual handling, lifting stuff, and simple slips and trips. And folks, those are the absolute classic signs of a workforce that's exhausted, rushed, and working in a messy, dangerous place. And the proof was everywhere you looked. 75 workers said they felt rushed and tired. The people on that new, faster conveyor belt, they all had these little nicks and cuts on their hands from parcels jamming. People were complaining about dry throats and allergies from all the cardboard dust in the air. And this is a big one. Safety rules, like needing 2 people to lift heavy bags, were just being ignored because there was no time. The culture had become go faster, not be safer. So what happened? I mean, how does a company that's been around for 15 years suddenly get so dangerous? It's pretty wild, but it turns out you can trace all of these problems, all of them, back to one single decision they made a year earlier. And there it is, the first domino. The company was in financial trouble, so they shut down one of their 2 sites and squeezed everything into one building. This one business decision kicked off a chain reaction of consequences that made the whole place more and more hazardous every single day. Just look at the difference. Before, with 2 sites, the workload was manageable. They had a dedicated in-house health and safety expert, a role they got rid of to save money. Afterwards, 1 site, longer, harder shifts, and they swapped out their old, slow, manual conveyor for a brand new, much faster, automated one, which cranked up the risk level significantly. So, what about the training for this new, faster, and way more dangerous machine? Well, this quote from the investigation just says it all, doesn't it? Workers were literally just shown where the big red button was and then told to get to work. No risk assessment, no new safety rules, just a demand to keep up with a faster machine in a warehouse that was already bursting at the seams. So, when you put it all together, from the big financial decision all the way down to the supervisor's simple mistake, you see this incredibly clear pattern. And there's actually a famous model that explains this kind of thing perfectly. It's called the Swiss cheese model, and it's a brilliant way to think about this. Imagine every safety rule, every policy, every trained person is a slice of Swiss cheese. Now, every slice has holes in it, nothing's perfect, right? But usually when you stack them up, the solid part of one slice covers the hole in the next. An accident only happens on that rare occasion when all the holes in all the slices line up perfectly, creating a straight path for a disaster to get through. So for MOMO Parcels, the first slice of cheese was the company's financial trouble. The decision to close a site and cram everything into one building, that created the first huge hole in their defenses. It was a failure buried deep in the system. The next hole? Getting rid of their health and safety advisor. Without that expert, there was nobody to spot the accident book filling up, nobody to question the joke of a training program for the new Conveyor, nobody to formalize how they manage contractors. Poof, another layer of defense was just gone. The third hole was the culture that developed, this constant feeling of being rushed and exhausted. Tired people started cutting corners, like ignoring the two-person lift rule. The operations manager was so swamped he only had time for one quick walkthrough a day before going home wiped out. This created an environment where mistakes weren't just possible, they were pretty much inevitable. And finally, we get to the last slice, the active mistakes made on the day of the accident. The manager not vetting the contractor properly, the untrained supervisor signing a permit he didn't understand, and just like that, the holes all lined up. The hazard shot right through, and the contractor paid the price. So here's the most important takeaway. This was not one person's fault. It was a complete system failure, where one small risk after another was ignored or brushed aside until they all combined to create a catastrophe. And that leaves us with a pretty important question to ask ourselves. What are the holes in the cheese where we work? What are the small, seemingly harmless risks that are being overlooked every day, just waiting for all the holes to line up?